What if I told you that everything you think you know about Jim Jones and Chrissy is a complete lie? Yes, you heard me accurately. Camron, the same Camron we all know, just destroyed everything they've built in one move. He entered that courtroom and tore apart their idyllic little world, and you won't believe the secrets he just revealed. The man who thought he was untouchable, the one we all believed could do no wrong, lost everything in front of the world. He stood there exposed as the walls collapsed around him, and you won't recognize her after this. Camron just revealed a scandal that will leave you stunned. What happens when the people you trust publicly betray you and everything you've worked so hard to build comes tumbling down? Isn't just another celebrity scandal, it's the scandal of the year. Don't you think that Chrissy was the mastermind behind all of this anymore? Do you think that Jim Jones didn't realize the truth is much worse than you think? Stay tuned because this is just the beginning. In the beginning, it appeared as though everyone was waiting for the next piece of the puzzle to come together. Would Melly escape punishment? Or would the evidence against him be too strong? Thakur say. Video footage that emerged was exactly what everyone had hoped for. It showed two figures in a car that might have been Melly and his alleged co-conspirator Bortland, but it was unclear and inconclusive, making it impossible to identify them with certainty. The trial was getting more complicated, and the public was becoming more interested in it than just following it. But the prosecution wasn't giving up either. They seized the footage, pointing out that even though it might not be entirely clear, it still put Melly at the scene at a critical moment, which was even more concerning for the prosecution. The defense team took advantage of this ambiguity, claiming that the footage was too hazy to have any real weight in court and that it was simply another attempt to mislead the jury and cast doubt, a strategy meant to influence public opinion rather than provide factual evidence of as if things couldn't get any worse. Melly's longtime friend and co-defendant Portland finally took action. Rumors of a possible plea deal had been going around for weeks, and now it appeared to be going to happen in court. Melly's defense involved the disclosure of his past, as a number of former associates came forward to say that Melly had made veiled threats prior to the murders. They said that Melly had expressed frustration and anger at being betrayed, and some even said that he had threatened to end the situation himself if the courtroom was on fire. Tension was high, and Bortland's defense team confirmed that he was negotiating with the prosecution for a reduced sentence in exchange for testimony against Melly. This was a devastating blow to Melly's case because Bortland had been the last line of defense for his story, and now that he might flip, the prosecution had an insider with intimate knowledge of the events leading up to the murders, leaving speculation and fear running high. The Free Melly movement seemed to be fading as more and more people started to question Melly's innocence after a friend was going to betray him for a lighter sentence. However, it didn't end there. A former member of Melly's inner circle came forward and claimed to have direct knowledge of Melly's involvement in the murders. The whistleblower, who was granted anonymity for their protection, claimed to have been present during the aftermath of the killings, to witness Melly discard evidence, and to have had private conversations at the time. Conversations with Melly confessing to them about the details of the murders were explosive, and seemed to confirm the worst fears of those who believed Melly was guilty. The defense naturally tried to discredit the whistleblower by saying that they were all ex-partners looking for money and attention, but the testimony and the growing number of witnesses against Melly were starting to paint a troubling picture, and the walls were closing in on him with each new piece of evidence. The recording, which was devastating, seemed to show that Melly and his lawyer were concerned about the case's outcome. If Melly was truly considering a plea deal, it would have indicated that he was willing to admit guilt, which could have been enough to permanently change the jury's verdict. The prosecution quickly exploited the recording, presenting it as evidence that Melly knew he was guilty and that he was trying to avoid the consequences of his actions by striking a deal. Of course, the public was now divided on all aspects of Melly's case, with some continuing to support him and claiming that the system was biased against him and that he was the victim of a massive conspiracy. At the same time, others started to question whether the evidence against him was accurate and whether Melly was actually capable of the crimes for which he was charged. As the trial came to an end, everyone's opinions were divided. Would Melly be free or face life in prison? As the case came to a close, the most startling development of all was when Melly testified in defense during the trial's closing stages. His emotional testimony denied any involvement in the murders and insisted that he was innocent. He talked about his upbringing, his struggles, and how he had always tried to do the right thing. In their opinion, the legal drama had turned into a global spectacle, and everyone seemed to be watching for the final verdict on whether Melly was guilty or innocent. Highly emotional and personal, and it seemed to sway some attendees. But was it enough? The world would soon find out if Melly's impassioned plea to the court was enough to convince the jury that he was innocent. As the trial came to an end, the jury deliberated, and everyone held their breath, wondering if Melly would be found guilty or if he would be free again despite the overwhelming evidence against him. Regardless of the verdict, one thing was certain: this case had changed everything. The YNW Melly story wasn't just about the tragedy between Jim Jones and Chrissy Lemon, isn't just about personal betrayal. Rather, it's a full-on public meltdown. Let's dive into the mess that's making waves on social media and beyond. When Camron took the stand, he wasn't just talking about financial manipulation or controlling relationships. He exposed an empire built on false pretenses. The murder trial was about a system, a celebrity, and the world of fame and fortune colliding in ways no one had ever expected. Jim and Chrissy's ship is slowly sinking because Camron didn't drop all of his bombs in the courtroom, according to court documents that Camron allegedly had in his possession. The fact that these documents are now in the hands of investigative reporters is shocking because, first of all, Jim wasn't the only person who made decisions regarding his career and finances. Chrissy, the woman who has gained notoriety as Jim's ride or die, was covertly pulling all the strings behind the Sinjun in the background when it came to the money, the real wealth they were accumulating. Chrissy had her hands all over it. It is said that she was the mastermind behind everything related to their business dealings. And we're not just talking about a few endorsement deals here. We're talking about offshore accounts, shell companies, and a network of hidden assets that only she could access. Jim might have been the one rapping and energizing the audience at his concerts, but she was the one who made the major financial decisions and shaped their relationship's narrative. A few people knew this, and while Jim was focused on his career and thought Chrissy had his back, Camron wasn't done yet. In fact, he took it to the next level when he started talking about the bad parts of their relationship. According to unnamed sources with knowledge of the situation, Chrissy wasn't just in charge of Jim's finances. She was also involved in managing his public image when making decisions. Camron wasn't going to let them get away with it, exposing everything in that courtroom from Jim and Chrissy's alleged involvement in some dubious financial transactions. He made every agreement he signed, and everything was planned by Chrissy to maintain the image of the perfect couple they had built over the years. Now, let's talk about the money laundering aspect of this situation because, believe me, it wasn't even an error. Instead, it was a carefully planned scheme to conceal their wealth and keep it out of the public eye. According to those same anonymous sources, the couple's dark secrets didn't stop there. From the start of their relationship, Chrissy had been using Jim as a pawn in her intricate game to secure wealth and power. It wasn't just a love story gone wrong. It was a calculated scheme to take control of Jim's life. This was because illegal funds meant for their business were allegedly being channeled through hidden accounts, into shell companies, and even allegedly used for personal expenses unrelated to their careers. The situation isn't just about financial manipulation or relationship drama. It's also about public perception, and that's where things get interesting. As soon as Camron revealed the truth about what was actually happening, the public had a field day on social media, with fans turning against Jim and Chrissy in a way that was almost poetic. Also, keep in mind that Jim Jones isn't just any celebrity. He's a rapper, businessman, and well-known figure in the hip-hop industry. Then came the part that really hit home. Jim Jones was no longer in charge once the courtroom revelations went public and his empire started to fall apart. No one knew who to trust anymore, not even his closest allies who had once supported him. The shockwaves that hit the internet were palpable, and everyone from hip-hop fans to casual observers could feel the shock. Behind closed doors, Chrissy was quietly making decisions that were his every move was a lie that we saw on TV. The damage was undeniable, and the betrayal was real. However, the question that everyone has is where Jim will go from here. The truth is that the damage caused by these revelations may be irreparable. Yes, Jim is a fighter and a survivor, but it's not just about a confrontation with Camron or some made-up drama for TV. It's about his entire public image being shattered by someone he trusted most. And worse, He's lost control of the narrative. If you think that Jim's situation is bad, wait until you see how Chrissy is handling it all. After everything that has been made public, she isn't exactly winning popularity contests, and fans and even some of her friends are starting to see her for who she truly is. The backlash will only get worse, but we're only just getting started. The public fallout is just getting started, and trust me, the more people who see it, the longer it will last. Now that we've explored the mess, the scandal, and the public chaos, let's talk about the aftermath because that's where things get even more intense. The courtroom drama, the lies, and the financial secrets are just the beginning. The real consequences are just starting to become apparent. First, Jim Jones's public image is in ruins. You know how the internet works. One mistake, one leak, one shocking revelation, and then suddenly this. But the worst part is that his career isn't just personal, it's also professional. His music is barely making an impression on the charts. His brand is struggling, his tours have been scaled back, and ticket sales are nowhere near what they used to be. The man went from being a respected figure in the hip-hop community to being the target of mockery and rumors. When your entire career has been built on loyalty, street cred, and respect, having your closest allies turn against you is like having them stab you in the back. About being a rapper with a few hits, it's about surviving the damage to your name, and believe me, it will take a toll. Jim won't recover from this kind of scandal easily, and if you associate with a man who is now publicly viewed as weak, manipulated, and possibly involved in shady dealings, you won't be the next person exposed for doing business with a fraud. Chrissy, on the other hand, isn't doing much better. Drama would go unnoticed, but reconsider. She has been dragged through the mud with Jim, and worse, she may have instigated it all. However, now that she is being revealed as the real mastermind behind the deceit and manipulation, those feelings of a perfect couple were just that, feelings. Chrissy was allegedly running the show, pulling strings, and using Jim as a puppet in a larger game of manipulation. The public may have been tricked for years, but now she is the one who has to deal with the fallout. Falling apart more quickly than a house of cards, but don't believe me when I say that. Let's discuss the fallout based on sources, and I'm talking about some actual insider information here. Fans are demanding answers and holding Chrissy responsible for the way she handled Jim's money and career. And let's not even get started on the internet trolls who are having a field day. Every tweet, meme, and comment reminds people that she is no longer seen as the loyal girlfriend who supports her man. Been depicted as a scammer who took advantage of her relationship for personal gain. And that is a recurring story. Now, let's talk about the legal consequences because, wow, things are getting serious. The courtroom drama exposed not only personal secrets, but also some serious legal red flags. We're talking about potential financial fraud, money laundering, and business deal manipulation. And you can bet your bottom dollar that things will get messy when the law starts to look around. Anonymous sources suggest that the couple's financial transactions consist of, this is not a trivial matter, people. Authorities are currently looking into possible money laundering schemes, offshore accounts, and hidden assets. These are not just accusations. Investigations are actually happening. If the accusations are true, we could face serious charges like tax evasion and even criminal conspiracy. Chrissy is also not off the hook, though, as sources close to the situation say she is already planning to distance herself from Jim. When the chips fall and the chips are down, the person who has been pulling the strings is typically the first to leave. Chrissy has been accused of using Jim's career as a launching pad for her own business. But what if it fails? You can bet that she does, and that's the next step in the fallout. Sources are already saying that things are getting ugly. Behind the scenes, but it's just a personal breakup. It's a public and professional split that will have long-lasting effects on the couple's financial affairs, business ventures, and what does this mean for Jim and Chrissy's future? Because the public is watching them closely, and the truth always finds a way to come to light. In this case, it's already exposed for the world to see. We know that it will be a long and bumpy road, and nobody will soon forget the mess they've made. Let's wrap up, shall we? Chrissy and I thought they could fool everyone, but in the end, they only fooled. That's the end of today's explosive story, but trust me, we're just getting started with the drama, the lies, and the betrayal. This saga is about an empire that was built on deceit and manipulation, and we're all watching as it all falls apart. Will Jim be able to pick himself up after it's all over? Will Chrissy emerge unscathed, or will she be held accountable for everything she did? Only time will tell, but one thing is for sure. This scandal is far from over, and you want to be the first to know what happens next. If you're shaken by all the twists and turns we've uncovered today, don't forget to like this video if you want more juicy exposés like that hit that we're always going above and beyond. Now is your chance to join the conversation about what you think will happen next. Will Jim Jones recover from this huge scandal? Can Chrissy save her reputation, or has she lost it all? Please share your thoughts in the comment section below. I know you have strong opinions about this, so let's see who is still on their side and who is prepared to end their relationship. To provide you with authentic news that you won't find anywhere, so please click the subscribe button and turn on the alert so you don't miss what we have in store for you next.